"Do you know anyone who needs a daughter?" That was the question a barefoot little girl asked outside the black doors of Chicago's most feared kingpin. Not for money, not for food, not even for warmth. She was asking for one thing most people spend their whole lives pretending they do not need, a place where no one would hurt her. Snow swept across the Gold Coast as black cars pulled beneath the awning of the Ivory Crown. Inside, crystal glasses shimmered beneath chandeliers. Outside, Ruby Hart stood in a torn coat, clutching a one-eared stuffed fox like it was the last gentle thing left in the world. This story is not only about rescue, it is about trust power and what it costs to become someone's safe place. Stay until the end, like the video, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. And the man she asked was Vincent Marlowe. He stood beneath the black awning of the Ivory Crown, while snow silvered the shoulders of his coat. Behind him, the restaurant glowed like another world. Crystal chandeliers burned above white linen. A jazz pianist played near the bar. Men who owned buildings, and women who owned the men inside them, spoke softly over bottles of wine older than Ruby. Outside, the cold had already taken the feeling from her feet. Vincent looked at the child in front of him. Tangled auburn hair clung to her cheeks. Her lips were pale. One sleeve of her coat was torn nearly to the elbow. She held a stuffed fox against her chest. It had one ear, one glass eye, and the flattened shape of something loved long after it should have fallen apart. Eli Mercer stepped out of the town car behind Vincent. Eli was built like a locked door. Broad shoulders, scarred knuckles, a face that ended conversations before they began. His gaze moved from Ruby to the street, then to the passing cars and the roofs above them. Vincent saw only the little girl. "What is your name, Ruby?" "Ruby what Hart." The wind drove snow beneath the awning. Ruby shivered so hard the fox trembled in her arms. Vincent removed his coat. He lowered it around her shoulders slowly enough for her to follow every movement. She flinched before the fabric touched her. Vincent stopped. "May I?" Ruby studied him, waiting for the question to prove meaningless. He did not move. At last she nodded. The coat swallowed her. "Come inside." Ruby stared at her bare feet. "I'll ruin the floor. It can be cleaned." People say that before they get mad. Vincent crouched until Chicago's most feared man was eye level with a child no one else had noticed. "I am not asking you to trust me. I am asking you to take one step out of the snow." Her gray blue eyes searched his. "That's how it starts." The sentence struck somewhere old. Vincent knew the fear of debt prison and betrayal. He knew how liars swallowed before speaking and how cowards watched exits before violence began. Ruby's fear was different. She was not afraid of what kindness was. She was afraid of what it might cost later. Vincent rose and held open the door. "No one will punish you for walking through it." Ruby stepped onto the marble. She walked on the outer edges of her feet, placing each one carefully, trying to leave as little of herself behind as possible. The dining room noticed. A senator paused with his wine glass raised. A developer turned in his chair. A woman near the fireplace whispered to her husband. Ruby heard them. Her shoulders curved inward. Vincent looked across the room once. Every whisper ended. Ruby stared at the wet prints behind her. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "The mess. They prove you made it inside." She frowned as if she could not understand why that mattered. Margot Bell approached from the private dining room in a black suit cut with severe precision. She had managed the Ivory Crown for 9 years and could remove a drunken governor without disturbing dessert. She started to speak about a waiting party, then saw Ruby. "Call Claire," Vincent said. Margot was already reaching for her phone. "I'll prepare the North Suite." Ruby watched everyone obey him. She watched them step aside without question. Then she looked at Vincent as if deciding whether power made a man safer or only harder to escape. The north suite occupied the third floor above the restaurant. A fire burned behind glass. Lamps cast warm circles over cream walls. A wide bed stood beyond an open doorway. On the low table waited a plate of bread and butter. Ruby stopped at the threshold. "Is this somebody's room? Tonight it is yours. For sleeping, if you want. Do the windows lock from the inside?" She entered 3 steps, then placed herself beside a wall where she could see both the door and the hall. Margot returned with warm water towels and thick socks from a staff locker. She set them down and moved away. Vincent sat in the chair opposite the sofa with both hands visible. "You can sit anywhere." Ruby looked at the white cushions. "It's clean. It has survived worse than you." She lowered herself onto the edge without leaning back. Vincent's coat pooled around her feet. Her eyes found the bread, then left it. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "No." The answer came too fast. Vincent looked at the sharp bones beneath her skin. "You do not have to earn food here." Ruby tightened her arms around the fox. "I know how to be careful. What is his name?" She blinked. "The fox. Copper." "Does Copper eat bread?" "He's not real." "I know." Ruby looked at the plate. "Can I save some?" "Yes. For tomorrow there will be more tomorrow." She did not move. Promises meant nothing to her. Vincent broke a roll in half. "You can eat one piece and keep the other. No one will take either." Ruby crossed the rug without sound. She ate in small bites, eyes closing for less than a second. When Vincent looked back, half the bread had disappeared into his coat pocket. He pretended not to see. Dr. Claire Bennett arrived 20 minutes later with snow in her dark curls and a leather medical case in one hand. She entered, saw Ruby, and set the case on the floor. "Hello, I'm Claire. I'm a doctor, but I do not have to do anything unless you say yes." Ruby glanced at Vincent. Claire sat several feet away. "That is a serious fox. He bites bad people. Then I will be careful." Something flickered at the corner of Ruby's mouth. Claire asked permission before every movement. "May I move the water closer? May I look at your feet? May I listen to your breathing? May I see where your side hurts?" When Claire reached toward Ruby's ankle, the child's body locked. Vincent crouched where she could see him. "Nothing happens unless you say yes. Will you stay yes? Even if I cry. Especially then." Warm water returned, feeling to Ruby's feet, and pain came with it. She bit her lip while Claire removed the torn layers. Purple marks lined her ribs. Fading fingerprints circled both arms. A burn scar rested near her wrist. Another marked her thigh. One rib had healed badly. Thin raised lines crossed her back. Claire stopped speaking. Vincent's hands closed. Ruby saw them. "I'm sorry." He opened them at once. "You did nothing wrong. I should have stayed still." Neither adult asked what that meant. By the end of the exam, Ruby was swaying with exhaustion. Claire helped her into clean socks and wrapped Vincent's coat around her again. In the hallway, Claire removed her glasses. Severe malnutrition, early frost injury, multiple wounds in different stages of healing, at least one old fracture. Burns. Scarring from repeated strikes. Eli stood near the stairs, motionless. "This is not one violent night," Claire continued. "Someone trained her to expect pain." "How old?" "7, maybe 8, Police Eli asked. "Soon. But if uniforms arrive while she is this frightened, she may run." Vincent looked at the suite door. "She will not leave this floor." Claire met his eyes. "That is protection only if she knows she can leave. Do not build her another cage because yours has softer walls." For a moment no one spoke. Then Vincent turned to Eli. "No locked doors. No one enters without knocking. 2 men downstairs out of sight." Eli nodded. "Pull every camera within 6 blocks. The bus station, train platforms, storefronts. Find where she came from. And if someone comes looking, we learn who they are before they learn where she is. Ruby did not sleep in the bed. She waited until the building went quiet, then curled behind an armchair with copper beneath her chin and Vincent's coat around her. Vincent found her shortly after midnight. The bed remained untouched. A small lump of bread showed inside his coat pocket. He pulled a chair from the hall and sat outside the suite facing the door. The Ivory Crown settled around him. Pipes shifted in the walls. Chairs scraped across the dining room below. Somewhere in the kitchen, Sal Greco cursed at a pan left soaking in cold water. Vincent remained until dawn. Margot found him before sunrise. "You are still here?" "Yes." She sat across from him. Neither spoke. Inside, Ruby slept with her back against a wall and her face turned toward the exit. At 5:15, she slipped downstairs. Sal found her beside the kitchen trash bins. He entered carrying espresso and complaining about wilted basil. Then he saw her and lowered his voice. Ruby sat near the pantry wall. Vincent's coat hung around her. Copper rested beneath one arm. She had chosen a place close to the trash, close to the exit, and facing the room. Sal said nothing about it. He took eggs, butter, pears, and bread from the cooler. Soon the kitchen smelled warm enough to make Ruby look away. "You hungry, no?" Sal nodded. "I am." He made 2 plates, set one near her, and took a bite from his own. Not poisoned. Ruby watched him. I checked twice. A faint breath escaped her nose. She came closer and ate standing up. Half the toast disappeared into Vincent's pocket. Sal turned toward the stove. He saw it. He let her keep it. By 7, cooks and delivery staff had filled the kitchen. Everyone noticed Ruby. Sal answered the questions in their faces. "She is with us." The room returned to work. Margot arrived with a toothbrush, shampoo, clothes, crayons, and red winter boots. Ruby stared at the boots. "Whose are those?" "Yours." For how long? Margot paused. "For as long as they fit." Ruby's hand pulled back. Margot understood. "And when they do not fit, we buy larger ones." "Really?" "Yes. Even if I ruin them, they are boots. Their purpose is to be ruined slowly." Sal faced the stove so no one would see his expression. Vincent entered minutes later. The kitchen changed around him. Knives slowed, voices lowered, backs straightened. Ruby froze for 1 second. Vincent stopped several feet away. "Good morning. You stayed. I said I would." She absorbed the answer carefully. Vincent placed a pharmacy bag near the boots. "Claire sent ointment for your feet." "Thank you." A lieutenant entered through the service hall carrying a folder. "We have a problem with the Cicero account." Vincent glanced at Ruby. "Not here." The man hesitated. "Your office?" "Later." Ruby watched him leave. She looked at Vincent as if she had just seen a law of nature change. Later that morning, Ruby followed Vincent to his office without being asked. The room was darker than the rest of the restaurant, lined with walnut shelves and windows overlooking the gray lake. A pistol rested inside an open drawer beside a stack of contracts. Ruby saw it. Vincent saw her see it. He closed the drawer and locked it. "Are you a bad man?" she asked. Eli went still near the door. Vincent did not answer quickly. "I have done bad things." Ruby hugged Copper closer. "Do you hurt children?" "No." "Do you hurt people who hurt children?" The question entered the room like a blade. Vincent looked toward the window. "Sometimes I want to." Ruby studied his face. "My uncle wanted things too." Vincent turned back to her. "Wanting is not the same as choosing." She seemed to consider that. Then she climbed into the chair near the bookshelf and opened the coloring book Margot had bought. Vincent moved every meeting out of the office for the rest of the day. Over the following days, the Ivory Crown learned Ruby's rhythms. Sal learned she woke before dawn. Margot learned she hated closed bathroom doors. Claire learned that every touch required an explanation. Eli learned that kindness frightened her more than distance, so he became predictable. He knocked twice before entering. He announced himself in hallways. "Behind you, Ruby." He never blocked a door or reached without warning. One afternoon, Ruby sat in Vincent's office coloring while Eli delivered a report. A yellow crayon rolled beneath the desk. Eli bent to pick it up. Ruby recoiled. He froze, then slowly held out the crayon. "Yellow," he said. Ruby stared at his scarred hand. Then she took it. Her fingers brushed his knuckles. She did not pull away. That night, the first scream came at 2:13. Vincent reached Ruby's room before anyone else. A lamp lay broken on the floor. Ruby crouched beneath the desk with copper crushed against her chest. "No, please, I'll be quiet. Don't turn it off." Vincent stopped several feet away. "Ruby." She rocked harder. "I'll be good. Please don't put me downstairs." He lowered himself to the floor. "You are at the Ivory Crown. The lake is 3 blocks east. Your red boots are beside the bed. Sal burned the first tray of rolls this morning." Her breath hitched. "The bathroom light is on. The door is open. No one locked it." Her eyes found him. Vincent turned on every lamp. Warm light filled the corners. "There is no basement here. Why are you on the floor? Because no one should be frightened alone." He remained there until her breathing slowed. Near dawn, Ruby fell asleep with 2 fingers wrapped around his sleeve. Later, Margot found Vincent in the hall. "You knew what to say." Vincent looked toward Ruby's room. "I knew what I needed someone to say once." Snow moved beyond the windows. "Grace was 8, he said. I was 17. We were at a winter festival near Navy Pier. She was holding my sleeve. His hand closed. There was a noise. People pushed. When I turned around, she was gone. You were a child. So was she." By noon, Eli brought the first search results. No missing child report existed for Ruby Hart. No school had reported her absence. No shelter hospital or police station had recorded her name. A camera near the bus terminal showed Ruby walking alone through the snow 2 nights before reaching the Ivory Crown. Eli placed the image on Vincent's desk. She came from the southwest side. Anyone behind her? Not on camera. Vincent studied the tiny figure beneath the station lights. "No one reported her missing," Eli said. "That does not mean no one wants her back. It means whoever wants her does not want questions." Across the office, Ruby colored silently on the rug. Then cigarette smoke drifted in from the hallway. Her hand stopped around the yellow crayon. Copper slipped from her lap. For the first time since entering the Ivory Crown, Ruby looked not at the door, but at a place far beneath it. The cigarette smoke reached Ruby before anyone else noticed it. It drifted through the open office door from a guest waiting in the private hall. Faint, stale, ordinary. The kind of smell most people forgot the moment it passed. Ruby did not. The yellow crayon snapped between her fingers. Her face emptied. Vincent was out of his chair before Copper touched the floor. "Ruby." She did not hear him. Her gaze fixed on the doorway, but she was no longer looking at the hall. Her shoulders rose toward her ears. One hand closed around her wrist, covering the pale burn Claire had treated that morning. The guest laughed outside. Ruby stumbled backward. "No smoking up here," Vincent said. He did not raise his voice, but the hallway went silent. Eli stepped through the door. A second later, the smell began moving away. Ruby pressed herself against the bookshelf. Vincent stopped several feet from her. "The smoke is gone." Her breathing came in quick, shallow pulls. He lowered himself to one knee. "Look at the yellow crayon." She stared through him. "It broke," he said. "Half is near your shoe. The other half is in your hand." Her fingers slowly opened. A piece of yellow wax lay against her palm. "You are in my office," Vincent continued. "The windows face the lake. Eli is at the door. Copper is on the rug." Ruby's eyes dropped. The stuffed fox lay near Vincent's knee. He did not reach for it. After several seconds, Ruby moved forward and grabbed Copper herself. She crushed him to her chest and turned her face away. "I'm sorry about the crayon." Margot stood in the doorway now, watching with careful stillness. Vincent picked up the broken pieces. "Crayons break. I squeezed it. Then we sharpen what is left." Ruby looked at him as if waiting for anger to appear after the patience ran out. It did not. That frightened her almost as much as the smoke. Claire came upstairs an hour later. She found Ruby beneath the window with Copper in her lap and a fresh box of crayons beside her. Vincent stood across the room pretending to read a contract. Claire sat on the rug. "Did the smoke remind you of something?" Ruby's thumb moved over Copper's missing ear. "No." Claire nodded. She did not challenge the answer. "Sometimes bodies remember before words do." Ruby looked at her. "What does that mean?" "It means you can feel afraid even when you are not ready to explain why." Ruby's eyes moved toward Vincent. "Do I have to explain?" "No," Claire said. Vincent lowered the papers. "No one here will make you." Ruby looked back at Copper. Her silence lasted the rest of the afternoon. The memories returned anyway. 2 days later, Sal hung a leather strap from a hook beside the pantry. It was part of an old knife case worn smooth from years of use. Ruby entered the kitchen, laughing softly at something Eli had said. Then she saw it. The laughter vanished. She dropped to the floor and covered the back of her neck. Sal turned from the stove. "Ruby." She crawled beneath the prep table. Sal looked at the strap. His face changed. He removed it from the hook and threw it into a drawer. "No one is touching you," he said. Ruby pressed her forehead to the tile. Vincent arrived moments later. He took in the overturned stool, the strap in the open drawer, and Ruby beneath the table. He did not ask what happened. He sat on the floor outside the narrow space. Sal moved everyone out of the kitchen. For 10 minutes, Vincent said nothing. Ruby finally whispered, "I thought it was his." "Whose?" She immediately shook her head. Vincent kept his voice even. "You do not have to tell me." Ruby looked toward the drawer. "He used one with holes." Vincent's breathing changed once. That was all. A delivery man closed the storage room door the following week. The latch clicked. Ruby screamed. By the time Margot opened it, Ruby had torn 2 fingernails trying to claw through the wood. She emerged shaking, unable to speak. Claire cleaned the blood from her fingers while Vincent stood near the window. He wanted a name. He wanted an address. He wanted a man placed in front of him so the fury inside his chest could become useful. Claire saw it. "She is not evidence," she said after Ruby fell asleep. Vincent's gaze remained on the bed. "I know." "No, you know she was hurt. That is different." He looked at her. Claire folded the stained cloth and set it aside. Her mind is giving the memories back in pieces, because the whole thing may be too much to survive at once. If you turn every reaction into a question, she will learn that pain is the price of staying here. I need to know who did this. You need her to trust that you will still be here when she cannot tell you. Vincent looked at Ruby. She slept curled on one side, both hands around Copper. What am I supposed to do? Let her choose the door. For 3 days, Ruby said nothing about the basement, the smoke, or the leather strap. Vincent did not ask. He kept the office door open. He moved meetings downstairs. He had every smoking guest removed from the third floor without explanation. On the fourth afternoon, Ruby appeared at his office alone. The lake beyond the windows was dark beneath a low winter sky. Vincent sat behind his desk reviewing invoices he had already read twice. Ruby stood in the doorway. "Can I come in?" He put down the pen. "Yes." She entered with Copper beneath one arm. Instead of sitting on the rug, she climbed into the chair across from him. Vincent waited. Ruby twisted the fox's remaining ear around one finger. "My mother's name was Emily." Vincent did not move. "She had red hair like mine. My dad said it was brighter." Ruby looked toward the window. "I do not remember her." Vincent understood the shame beneath the words. "You were a baby. She died when I was born." The sentence came flat, as though Ruby had repeated it many times to herself. "People said it was not my fault. But if I was not born, she would not have died." Vincent leaned back slowly. "Who told you that?" "No one." "Then who made you believe it?" Ruby looked down. "My aunt said my mother gave everything for me. Wade said that meant I took everything." Vincent's hand closed around the edge of the desk. Ruby continued before he could answer. "My dad said Mom picked Copper before I was born." Her thumb brushed the fox's torn stitching. "He said she wanted me to have something soft when I slept." "What was your father's name?" "Daniel Hart." For the first time, a little warmth entered her voice. "He made pancakes shaped like animals. They never looked right. Once he made a bear that looked like a shoe." Vincent could see it then. Not the scene itself, but the way Ruby held it. Carefully, like bread hidden in a coat pocket. What happened to him? He worked at a steel plant. Ruby's fingers tightened around Copper. "A machine broke. A lady came to our house. She sat at the kitchen table and kept saying there had been an accident." Vincent had heard that phrase used to describe bullets, falls, overdoses, and choices men regretted after the blood dried. Ruby had been left with a stuffed fox and a word adults used when the truth was too sharp. "After that, I went to live with Aunt Dana." Your mother's sister Ruby nodded. "At first she was nice." Vincent stayed silent. "She let me sleep in a real bed. She bought strawberry soap. She made pancakes on Saturdays, but hers looked like circles." A small crease appeared between Ruby's brows. "She cried a lot when she thought I was asleep." Then Wade came. Ruby's hand stopped moving. He brought flowers. Vincent felt the room change. He opened doors for Aunt Dana. He called me Princess. He said we were going to be a real family. Her voice flattened. "After they got married, he moved into the house." What was his full name? Ruby's eyes lifted immediately. Vincent saw the fear in them. He softened his tone. "You do not have to answer." She looked at the open office door. "Wade Kessler." Vincent stored the name behind his teeth. Ruby continued. "At first he yelled at things." "What things?" "The television, the sink, bills, cars outside, the weather." She swallowed. Then he yelled at Aunt Dana, her fingers wrapped tighter around Copper. Then me. Vincent listened without interruption. If I talked, I was disrespectful. If I stayed quiet, I was hiding something. If I ate fast, I was greedy. If I ate slow, I was wasting food. She looked at him with the exhausted confusion of a child still trying to solve an impossible puzzle. "I tried every way." Vincent's voice came low. There was no right way. Ruby shook her head. "There had to be." "No. I just never found it. He made sure you could not." The certainty in Vincent's voice made her still. Ruby looked down again. The first time he hit me, I spilled milk. Her face did not change. I tried to clean it with my sleeve. He said I made it worse. Vincent pictured a small kitchen milk soaking into carpet, a frightened child rubbing at it while footsteps approached. He used his hand that time. Ruby spoke as though she were listing ingredients. After that, he used other things. Vincent glanced toward the open drawer where the pistol once rested. It was empty now. Good. There was a room under the house, Ruby said. The word room did not fit the way her body reacted. Her knees drew closer together. Her shoulders rounded. Her eyes shifted toward the floor. A basement. A coal room. Vincent said nothing. No windows. Just pipes and boxes. It smelled like wet dirt. She rubbed her palms against the arms of the chair. The light had a chain. Wade could turn it off from the stairs. How long did he keep you there? Ruby shrugged. I do not know. Hours. I could not see a clock. Days. She looked toward him. Sometimes the pipes got warm twice. Vincent's face remained still through force alone. What did you eat? If Aunt Dana came down, she brought crackers. And if she did not, Ruby's shoulders rose. Vincent looked at the lake because he could not look at her for 1 second without showing what he wanted to do to Wade Kessler. Did your aunt know he locked you there? Yes. The answer was quiet. She said he needed time to calm down. Did she ever call anyone? No. Did she try to take you away? Ruby shook her head. Sometimes she put cream on the burns when he was asleep. Vincent turned back. She saw them. Ruby nodded. She cried. And then she told me to be more careful. The betrayal sat between them. It was heavier than the blows. Ruby's mouth trembled. She said she loved me. Vincent left his chair and came around the desk. He did not approach her directly. He sat on the corner of the rug, leaving space between them. Adults can love badly. Ruby stared at him. What does that mean? It means what they feel does not excuse what they failed to do. Ruby looked toward Copper. Aunt Dana was scared. So were you. She said Wade had nowhere else to go. You had nowhere else to go. Ruby's eyes filled, but she did not cry. The room remained quiet long enough for the heat vent to click. One night they were fighting, she said. Vincent waited. Wade lost money. Gambling, I do not know. He said men were going to hurt him. Her breathing became shallow again. I was at the top of the stairs. They thought I was asleep. Vincent shifted closer by 1 inch. Wade said I cost too much. He said food and school and clothes were all wasted on me. Ruby's thumb pressed into Copper's glass eye. He said he knew people who paid for girls. Vincent became very still. What kind of people I do not know. You do not have to guess. He said I was young enough. Ruby's voice broke on the last word. He said my face was still good. Vincent lowered his gaze. The world narrowed to the grain of the floorboards beneath his hand. Ruby hurried on, frightened by his silence. I did not understand everything. You understood enough. She nodded. Aunt Dana cried. She said no. Wade told her they would lose the house. What did she say after that? Nothing. Vincent looked at her. Did she help you leave? Ruby shook her head. I waited until Wade fell asleep on the couch. The television was loud. Aunt Dana went upstairs and closed her door. She lifted Copper slightly. I had hidden him behind the furnace pipe. What about your shoes? Wade took them. Why? He said I had not earned new ones. Vincent closed his eyes for 1 heartbeat. Ruby continued. The basement window was small. I pushed until it opened. The glass cut my arm. She touched a healing mark near her elbow. I walked until it got light. Where did you sleep? Behind a laundromat the first night, under a loading dock the second. What did you eat? She looked toward Vincent's coat hanging beside the door, things people threw away. The answer entered the room without drama. That made it worse. Did anyone stop? No. Did anyone ask your name? No. Did anyone call the police? Ruby shook her head. Some people told me to move. Vincent pictured hundreds of faces passing her. Chicago was full of men who claimed to notice everything. They knew which cars belonged to judges, which restaurants seated celebrities, which neighborhoods belonged to, which crews. None of them had seen a barefoot child. Then I saw your restaurant, Ruby said. Her gaze moved toward the office door. The windows were warm. Everyone inside looked like they belonged somewhere. She pulled Copper closer. I thought maybe rich people knew where unwanted children went. Vincent felt something break open behind his ribs. So you asked me. I tried to ask the right way. Ruby's shoulders folded inward. I am sorry. For what? For telling you all of it. Vincent rose. Ruby flinched. He stopped immediately. Then he lowered himself to his knees in front of her. He opened his arms. He did not reach. Ruby stared at the space between them. Vincent waited. She leaned forward slowly as though crossing ice that might crack beneath her. The moment her body touched his, her control vanished. Her hands fisted in the back of his shirt. A sound tore from her chest, small at first, then deeper. Vincent held her with one hand between her shoulder blades and the other behind her head. She weighed almost nothing. He will never lock you in that room again, he said. Ruby's breathing shook against his collar. You are not going back. People say things when they want you to stop crying. Vincent eased back enough to see her face. Then do not believe me yet. Ruby blinked through tears. Watch what I do. She searched his eyes. Can I stay here tonight? Yes. And tomorrow? Yes. How long? As long as you need me. Ruby pressed her face against his shoulder again. Vincent held her until the crying softened. When she finally fell asleep in his arms, he carried her upstairs. He placed her on the bed, but Ruby's fingers closed around his sleeve. Stay. Vincent sat beside her. I am here. She did not let go until sleep took her. Eli waited in the office when Vincent returned. A file rested on the desk. Vincent closed the door. Tell me. Wade Kessler, 49. Married Dana Hart 3 years ago. 2 assault complaints from a former girlfriend. Neither reached trial. Eli opened the file. He owes money to bookmakers in Chicago and Milwaukee. He has been collecting state support intended for Ruby. School records. None for the last 14 months. Donna told the district Ruby was being educated at home. Vincent turned a page. A photograph showed a narrow house with peeling siding and a basement window close to the ground. Did you enter? Not yet. The place was cleared out yesterday. Vincent looked up. Yesterday furniture's still there, but papers, electronics, and personal items are gone. Someone cleaned the basement. Neighbors. One heard a child crying months ago. Wade said Ruby had night terrors. Eli placed a second sheet on the desk. Wade has been calling a man named Curtis Vale. Vale connects gambling debts to buyers who deal in people. Vincent's eyes hardened. Enough to arrest him. Not yet. Enough for me. Claire's voice came from the doorway. No. Vincent turned. She stepped into the office and closed the door behind her. If you make Wade disappear tonight, Ruby will spend the rest of her life waiting for him to return. He threatened to sell her, then prove it. Vincent looked at the photograph of the basement window. Claire came closer. She does not need revenge. She needs certainty. Vincent's fingers rested on Wade's face in the file. What if certainty takes too long? Then you stay beside her while it does." Eli's phone vibrated. He read the message once. His expression changed. "What?" "One of our men spoke to a bartender Wade uses." Vincent waited. Eli turned the screen toward him. A grainy photograph showed Wade Kessler sitting at the far end of a bar. A phone rested against his ear. His face was tight with anger. Beneath the photograph was a single line from the man watching him. "He has been asking questions about the Ivory Crown." Vincent looked toward the ceiling, toward the room where Ruby slept with one hand wrapped around his sleeve. Then he closed the file. Double the doors. Outside, snow began falling across Chicago again. Across the city, Wade Kessler lifted his drink and told the man beside him that a little girl had taken something that belonged to him. Wade Kessler believed Ruby had taken something that belonged to him. Not love, not family, control. For 4 days, the Ivory Crown waited. Vincent doubled security at every entrance, but he kept the men out of Ruby's sight. Eli watched the street from an apartment across the avenue. Cameras tracked every car that slowed near the restaurant. Deliveries were opened before they entered the building. Ruby knew none of it. Vincent wanted the shape of her days to remain ordinary. She woke before sunrise and sat in the kitchen while Sal worked. She wore the red boots Margot had bought her even when she did not need them. She had stopped asking whether they still belonged to her, though she checked each night to make certain they remained beside the bed. On Friday afternoon, she stood on a wooden stool beside Sal, helping him press fresh pasta through a machine. Flour dusted her hair and sleeves. "Why does it have to be so thin?" she asked. "Because thick pasta is a personal insult." "To who? To me?" Ruby considered that seriously. Does the pasta know Sal looked at her over his glasses? It knows now. A soft laugh escaped her. Then she glanced through the small glass window in the kitchen door. The strip of dough slipped from her fingers. A man stood at the host station. Tall, narrow, dark coat buttoned to the throat. His hair was combed carefully across his forehead. Snow melted on his shoulders while he smiled at the young hostess. Ruby stopped breathing. The pasta machine continued turning. The pale sheet folded over itself and dropped to the floor. Sal followed her stare. He had never seen Wade Kessler before, but he knew at once. Ruby's face had become colorless. Her hands were locked against the edge of the counter. Her eyes did not blink. "Ruby." She did not respond. Sal stepped between her and the window. "Look at me." Her mouth opened. "He found me." The words barely carried. Sal lifted her from the stool. She did not fight him. Her body had gone rigid, every muscle fixed in the shape of escape. He carried her through the pantry and into the dry storage room. "Margot," he called. The kitchen went silent. Margot appeared from the service corridor. One look at Ruby was enough. "Take her upstairs." Ruby caught Sal's shirt. "No." Her voice broke. "If I move, he'll see." "He cannot see you from here," Margot said. "He always sees." Sal lowered himself onto an overturned crate with Ruby held against his chest. Margot stepped into the dining room. At the host station, Wade placed a folder on the polished counter. "I am looking for my niece," he said. His voice carried the warmth of a man asking for directions. The hostess. Jenna looked at the photograph inside the folder. Ruby smiled in the picture. She looked younger. Her hair was longer. Both of Copper's ears were still attached. "Her name is Ruby Hart." Wade continued. "She ran away during a difficult episode. We have been worried sick." Jenna glanced at the guardianship papers. "I'm sorry, sir. I do not recognize her." Wade's smile remained. "I was told she might have come through here." Margot stopped beside Jenna. "And you are Wade Kessler." He turned toward her with practiced concern. "I am Ruby's legal guardian. Her aunt is my wife." Margot did not look at the papers. "What makes you believe she is here?" "Children talk. People talk more." His eyes moved across the dining room. "I only want to bring her home." Margot studied him. Nothing in Wade's posture suggested panic. His coat was dry beneath the shoulders. His breathing was calm. He had not rushed through the door like a desperate guardian. He had entered like a man collecting property. "I will speak with the owner," Margot said. "I would appreciate that." His smile sharpened. "She tells stories when she's upset. You should know that before anyone makes an unfortunate mistake." Margot turned away. Her pace remained calm until she passed through the kitchen door. Then she moved quickly. Vincent was already coming down the service corridor. Eli followed behind him. "He is here," Margot said. Vincent's face became still. "Where is Ruby with Sal? Did she see him?" "Yes." Vincent looked at Eli. "Lock the private stairs." Eli nodded. Vincent entered the dining room alone. The change in the room began before anyone saw him. Conversations thinned, glasses lowered. The pianist continued playing, but each note seemed farther apart. Wade turned from the host station. For half a second, satisfaction crossed his face. Then he arranged himself into grief. "Mr. Marlowe." Vincent stopped several feet away. "I assume you know why I am here." Vincent said nothing. Wade extended his hand. Vincent looked at it. Wade lowered it. "My niece disappeared nearly a week ago. 3 weeks." The correction struck. Wade recovered. "So she is here." "I did not say that. You knew how long she has been missing." Vincent's gaze did not shift. "You did not report her missing." Wade's smile weakened. "We were searching privately. Ruby is sensitive. Public attention would make things worse." "You mean questions would make things worse?" Wade glanced at the guests. "This is a family matter." Vincent stepped closer. A child with burns on her skin stopped being a family matter. For the first time, Wade's face changed completely. Only for a moment. Then the smile returned. "Ruby hurts herself when she becomes emotional." The lie landed quietly. Vincent's eyes narrowed. "She has always been troubled. Her father's death damaged her. My wife and I have done everything we can." "Did everything include locking her underground?" Wade's jaw tightened. "She has an imagination. She has scars. Children fall." On to cigarettes. The dining room had gone silent. A woman near the fireplace lowered her fork. Wade looked around and realized Vincent had forced him into the center of a public stage. He lowered his voice. "You do not understand what you are dealing with. Ruby lies when she is frightened." Vincent moved close enough that Wade had to raise his chin. She was frightened when she told the truth. Wade placed one hand on the folder. "These papers say she belongs with me." Vincent looked down at the documents. "Papers say you have legal custody. That is the same thing." "No." Vincent's voice dropped. "People belong to themselves." Wade's eyes hardened. "You have no authority here." Vincent looked around the restaurant. "In this building I have all of it. That will not matter when I return with police officers, then return with them." Wade had expected threats. He had expected panic. He had not expected permission. He shifted closer. "If you are hiding her, you are committing a crime." Vincent's expression remained calm. "If I were hiding her, you would not be standing here long enough to accuse me." Wade held his gaze. "You think your name makes you untouchable?" "No." Vincent glanced toward Eli, who now stood near the bar. "It makes other men careful." Wade followed his eyes. 2 more security men had appeared near the entrance. He buttoned his coat. "This is not finished." Vincent stepped aside. "You have 10 seconds to leave." Wade picked up the folder. She is my responsibility. 9. You cannot keep her forever. 8. Wade backed toward the doors. His public smile was gone now. She always comes home eventually. The words traveled through the service window. In the storage room, Ruby heard them. Her fingers dug into Sal's shirt. Vincent's face changed. Eli reached Wade before Vincent could move. You are done, Eli said. Wade allowed himself to be escorted outside. At the door, he looked back. His gaze found Vincent across the room. This city will see what you are, Vincent answered without raising his voice. It already knows. The doors closed behind Wade. Vincent turned toward the kitchen. Ruby was no longer in Sal's arms. She had locked herself inside the pantry. Sal stood outside the door, one hand flat against the wood. She will not answer. Vincent crouched near the floor. Ruby. Nothing. He tried the handle. Locked. Eli entered behind him. Vincent raised one hand. No one touched the door. Ruby Wade is outside. A small sound came from within. He found me. Yes. He always finds me. He is not inside this building. He'll come back with papers. Vincent rested his back against the pantry door. Then the papers come through me. He'll bring police. Then I will speak to them. They always believe him. Vincent looked at the floor. Do you believe me, Silence? No. Ruby whispered. The answer hurt because it was honest. Vincent nodded even though she could not see him. Good. Sal looked down at him. Vincent continued. Do not believe me because I sound certain. Believe what you see. What if they take me? They will have to move me first. Ruby began to cry behind the door. Not loudly. The quiet crying was worse. Everybody says no before they give me back. Vincent slid one hand beneath the narrow gap. His palm faced upward. I am not giving you back. Minutes passed. Then 2 small fingers touched his hand. He did not close around them. He let Ruby decide how long the contact lasted. The pantry lock turned. The door opened 2 inches. Ruby stood behind it with copper pressed beneath her chin. Vincent remained on the floor. She looked at him. Did he touch anyone? No. Did he hurt Sal? Sal answered from behind Vincent. He offended my pasta. That is all. Ruby did not smile. She opened the door wider and stepped into Vincent's arms. This time he did not need to offer first. She held him with both hands. Vincent looked over her head at Eli. Call Claire. And the police? Eli asked. Vincent held Ruby closer. Yes. The first officers arrived 20 minutes later. They entered through the private service door to avoid the guests and the cameras already gathering outside. Wade had moved quickly. A local reporter stood across the street beneath an umbrella speaking into a camera about the possible abduction of a missing child by a powerful Chicago businessman. Ruby watched the flashing lights from the 3rd floor. They came for me. Claire closed the curtains. They came to ask questions. That is what they say. A woman in a gray wool coat entered the suite with 2 police officers. She was in her late 30s with tired eyes and a leather case held against her side. My name is Julia Reyes. I work with Child Protective Services. Ruby moved behind Vincent. Julia noticed. She also noticed Vincent did not pull Ruby forward. I need to speak with her. Vincent's voice remained controlled. Not alone. Julia looked at him. Eventually, yes, alone. Ruby gripped the back of his shirt. Julia lowered herself into the chair across the room. No one is taking you anywhere tonight, she said. Ruby looked toward Vincent. Julia followed her gaze. That is not a promise from him. It is a promise from me. Ruby studied the badge clipped inside Julia's coat. Wade has papers. I know. He says papers mean I belong to him. Julia's expression tightened. Papers do not make you property. Vincent looked at her for the first time with something close to respect. Julia asked Claire to explain the injuries. Claire presented photographs, medical notes, dates, and her professional assessment. The officers stopped looking at Vincent as the greatest danger in the room. Julia turned to Ruby. "Did Wade Kessler cause these injuries?" Ruby froze. Vincent saw her breathing change. Julia immediately stopped. "You do not have to answer tonight." Ruby looked at Vincent. He did not nod or encourage her. The choice remained hers. "Yes," she whispered. Julia closed the folder. "That is enough for now." Wade's guardianship documents were valid. Dana remained Ruby's legal guardian. No criminal charges had yet been filed. Ruby's account and Claire's medical records supported an emergency protection order, but Julia warned Vincent that the placement could not continue informally. "You cannot simply keep a child because you believe she is safer with you." Vincent stood near the fireplace. "She is safer with me. That may be true. It still has to be established." By people who failed to notice she was missing, Julia did not flinch. "Yes." The answer surprised him. She continued. "You have private armed security, restricted rooms, businesses connected to men my office has seen in police reports." Ruby looked between them. Julia lowered her voice. "I am not here to punish you for helping her. I am here to determine whether your help is another form of control." Vincent's jaw tightened. Claire stepped between them. "Ruby needs stability tonight." Julia nodded. "She can remain here under emergency placement for 72 hours. After that, there will be a hearing." Ruby caught the number. "What happens after 72 hours?" Julia looked at her. "We find the safest place for you. This is the safest place." Her voice came sharper than anyone expected. Julia glanced at Vincent. "That is something we will consider." Ruby moved closer to him. Vincent looked down at her. He wanted to promise the decision had already been made. He did not. Instead, he said, "I will be here for every question." The investigation began before sunrise. Julia interviewed staff members separately. Sal described finding Ruby near the trash bins. Margot explained the red boots, the unlocked doors, and the rules around consent. Eli answered every question with as few words as possible. Claire submitted medical evidence. Vincent opened parts of his financial records and refused to open others. Julia noticed everything. By noon, Wade's photograph was on local television. He stood beside Dana outside their house. Dana looked pale and frightened. Wade held her around the shoulders while speaking to reporters. "Our niece is emotionally unwell. She was manipulated by a dangerous man." Ruby watched from the kitchen doorway. Dana said nothing. Wade continued. "We only want our child home." Ruby's face collapsed. Margot turned off the television. "She is standing beside him." Vincent came into the room. Ruby looked at him. She could have told them. Yes. She did not. No. Ruby's mouth trembled. "Maybe she wants me to go back." Vincent crossed the room slowly. "Dana's failure is not proof that you should return. She is my family. Family is not permission to abandon you." The words entered Ruby carefully. She did not answer. Outside, the story grew. Reporters gathered near the Ivory Crown. Commentators argued about whether Vincent Marlowe was protecting a child or using her against her guardians. Old rumors returned. His business history, his connections. Men who had disappeared after owing him money. Several of Vincent's associates came to his office that evening. One of them, Martin Cole, placed a newspaper on the desk. "This is becoming a problem." Vincent looked at the headline. "Then solve it. We cannot solve child services. We cannot threaten reporters. We cannot make this disappear without making it worse." Vincent leaned back. Martin continued. "Let the state place her somewhere else until the hearing." "No. It is temporary." "No. Vincent, she is not family." The office door stood open behind him. Ruby was in the hall. Vincent saw her reflection in the window before Martin did. His voice became cold. She became family the night everyone else decided she was inconvenient. Martin turned and saw Ruby. Her face revealed nothing. That frightened Vincent more than tears would have. She walked away. He rose at once. By the time he reached the hall, Ruby was gone. Eli found the red boots missing from her room. Copper was gone. So were 2 pieces of bread. The service door near the loading dock stood open. Vincent reached the alley as snow began falling. Ruby stood beside a stack of delivery crates with a small cloth bag in one hand. Eli remained several feet away. He had not blocked her path. Vincent stopped at the door. Ruby looked at him. "You said I could leave." "Yes. So I am leaving. Where I do not know." The wind moved her hair across her face. Vincent stepped into the snow. Ruby backed away. "You are losing things because of me. What things? Money. People. Your restaurant. I had those before you. You did not have police here." "I have had police here before." Ruby's eyes filled. "You did not have everyone calling you bad." Vincent almost smiled. "They have called me worse. This is not funny." "No." He moved one step closer. Ruby tightened her grip on the bag. "I heard that man. He said, 'I am not family.' He was wrong. What if everyone thinks that I do not need everyone?" She looked toward the street. "Wade will stop if I go back." Vincent's face hardened. "No. He only wants me. That is exactly why you cannot go." Ruby shook her head. "You will get hurt." Vincent lowered himself to one knee in the snow. "I have been hurt before. Because of me? No." She looked at him. He continued. "The things that happened before you came here were not your fault. The things that happened because I choose to protect you are not your fault either." Ruby's breathing trembled. "You could choose not to." "Yes." The honesty made her still. Vincent held out his hand. "I am choosing you." Ruby stared at his palm. Snow gathered on his shoulders and hair. "What if you change your mind? Then you will see me change it." She looked toward the Ivory Crown. Warm light spilled across the alley from the open service door. Eli stood beside it, holding Ruby's coat. Margot waited farther inside. Sal had come down from the kitchen with flour still on his hands. No one moved toward her. No one ordered her back. Ruby dropped the bag. She crossed the distance and placed her hand in Vincent's. He did not pull. She walked beside him into the building. Behind them, Eli picked up the bag. One piece of bread had fallen into the snow. He left it there. Inside, Vincent closed the service door but did not lock it. Ruby watched him. He placed the key on the table where she could see it. Then he looked through the narrow window toward the street. Across the avenue, a black sedan idled beneath a dead street lamp. It remained there for less than a minute before pulling into traffic. Eli came to stand beside Vincent. "You saw it?" "Yes." "Wade." "Not him." Vincent watched the taillights disappear into the snow. Ruby stood behind them in her red boots, unaware that the man inside the sedan had already photographed every entrance to the Ivory Crown. The man inside the sedan had photographed every entrance to the Ivory Crown. By morning, Eli had his license plate, the name on the registration, and 3 images of his face from traffic cameras along State Street. The car belonged to a shell company in Cicero. The driver had worked twice for Curtis Vale. Vincent studied the photographs in his office while snow pressed against the windows. "Wade is measuring the building," Eli said. "He is measuring us." Eli placed another photograph on the desk. It showed the sedan parked near the service alley. The driver was speaking into a phone. "He knows the front entrance is impossible. He knows the private stairs are watched. He knows Ruby has not left the building." Vincent looked toward the open office door. Ruby sat on the rug with Copper and a book Margot had given her. She was sounding out a sentence beneath her breath, unaware that 2 armed men now watched each end of the hall. Vincent lowered his voice. He will not touch her here. Then he waits until she goes outside. She does not go outside. Eli looked at him. For how long, Vincent had no answer. Ruby had already spent years behind locked doors. Safety could not become another word for captivity. That afternoon, Julia Reyes arrived for a scheduled visit. She found Ruby in the kitchen, standing on a stool beside Sal while he rolled dough. Ruby smiled when Julia entered. It was small, but it was real. Julia noticed the armed man near the service door. She noticed another through the kitchen window. When she met Vincent in his office, she closed the door. "You are turning this place into a bunker. There is a man watching the exits. Then report him." "We did, and the car is registered to a company that rents vehicles. The driver has not broken a law." Julia folded her arms. "Ruby needs protection. She also needs a life. She has one. She has 3 floors above a restaurant. She is alive." Julia held his gaze. "That is the lowest possible standard." Vincent's expression hardened. "You think I do not know that I think fear is making decisions for both of you?" Vincent moved toward the window. Far below, people crossed the avenue beneath umbrellas. A mother held the hand of a little boy in a yellow coat. The child pulled toward a pile of snow, and the mother allowed herself to be pulled with him. Ruby had not stepped beyond the Ivory Crown since Wade appeared. She had stopped asking. That was what troubled him most. "Claire agrees," Julia said. "Short walks, familiar adults, security at a distance. She needs to learn that the world is not only the room where Wade cannot reach her." Vincent turned. "And if he does reach her, then your people stop him." The answer sounded simple. Nothing involving Ruby felt simple anymore. That evening, Vincent found her sitting beside the 3rd-floor window. Snow covered the rooftops. Lights moved along Lake Shore Drive in slow red lines. "Do you miss being outside?" he asked. Ruby shrugged. "You can tell me." She kept her eyes on the glass. "I miss birds." Vincent sat in the chair beside her. "There are birds in the courtyard. They know they cannot leave." He followed her gaze to the iron fencing below. Ruby pressed one finger against the window. "I used to see pigeons from the basement window. Only their feet." Vincent said nothing. They looked free anyway. The next morning he agreed to the walk. Eli objected. Vincent listened, then ordered 4 men to take positions around the small lakefront park 2 blocks away. One sat in a parked sedan. Another walked a dog near the fountain. 2 more waited near the north and south entrances. Sal insisted on going with Ruby. She is not spending her first walk surrounded by men who look like they are preparing for war. "You are not security," Eli said. Sal pulled on his coat. "I survived 30 years in restaurant kitchens. I am more dangerous than all of you." Ruby wore her red coat, cream hat, gloves, and boots. Vincent crouched in front of her near the service door. "You stay beside Sal." "I know. If he says run, you run." "Where to Eli?" Eli stood several feet away. Ruby looked up at him. "What if I cannot see him?" Eli touched 2 fingers to his chest. "I will see you." Ruby considered the answer. Vincent checked the buttons on her coat even though Margot had already checked them twice. Ruby looked at him. "You are doing the worried face." "I do not have a worried face." "You do." Sal opened the door. Cold air entered the corridor. Ruby stepped toward it, then stopped. Vincent waited. She looked back at the warm kitchen, the stairs, and the hallway light that remained on even during the day. Then she stepped outside. The city seemed enormous. Cars hissed over wet pavement. A bus groaned at the corner. Wind came off the lake with the smell of ice and metal. Ruby held Sal's hand until they reached the park. Then she let go. Snow covered the grass in a thin white layer. A gull stood on the railing, staring at them with open suspicion. Ruby stopped. "He is very big. He is a criminal," Sal said. The gull screamed. See? No respect for authority. Ruby smiled. They walked along the path. Sal bought roasted chestnuts from a cart and burned his fingers opening the bag. Ruby laughed when he blamed the weather. A pigeon chased another pigeon beneath a bench. Ruby watched them with the serious attention she gave everything. Why is that one following him? Money. Birds do not have money. Then betrayal. She laughed again. Across the park, Eli heard the sound through the small receiver in his ear. He looked toward the street. A black cargo van turned the corner. It moved too quickly. Eli's hand went to his coat. The van crossed one lane, struck the curb, and entered the park in a burst of gray slush. Move! Eli said into the radio. Sal heard the tires before he saw the vehicle. He turned. The van skidded toward the path. Ruby froze. The side door opened while it was still moving. 2 men jumped out. Sal shoved Ruby behind him. The first man came straight toward her. Sal struck him across the jaw. The blow turned the man sideways, but the second attacker drove a fist into Sal's ribs. Air left his body. He stayed upright. The man hit him again. Sal fell to one knee. Ruby screamed. The first attacker recovered and lunged around him. Ruby tried to run, but her boot slipped in the snow. She fell backward. The man seized her coat. The open side door of the van waited behind him. Dark interior. Metal floor. No windows. Ruby stopped fighting. For one terrible second, she was no longer in the park. She was at the basement stairs. Wade was above her. The light was about to go out. Then the attacker's grip vanished. One of Eli's men caught him around the throat and dragged him backward. Another security officer drove the second man against the side of the van. Metal buckled beneath the impact. Eli reached Ruby. He crouched in front of her but did not touch her. Ruby. She stared at the open van. Ruby, look at me. Her teeth struck together. They are going to put me in there. No, they have the door open. They are not taking you. She looked at him. Eli held both hands where she could see them. The van is empty. The men are down. Sal is behind me. Ruby's eyes moved. Sal had forced himself upright. Blood ran from his lower lip. One arm remained pressed against his side. I am fine, he said. His voice came out thin. Ruby's face crumpled. You got hurt. Sal staggered closer and crouched with a wince. That is not your fault. I should not have come outside. No. If I stayed inside, they would not hurt you. Sal shook his head. They chose to hurt me. You chose to look at birds. Ruby stared at the blood on his mouth. I am sorry. Sal's expression broke. No more apologies. He opened his arms. Ruby went to him. Sal held her against his chest while Eli turned toward the men beside the van. One attacker lay face down in the snow with his wrists bound. The other was on his knees, blood dripping from his nose. A security officer held up a phone. A message came through. Eli took it. The screen showed a new text from an unknown number. Take the girl. Do not mark her face. The buyer pays less for visible damage. Eli read it twice. Then he called Vincent. Vincent answered before the first ring ended. Report. 2 men attempted to take Ruby at the lakefront park. Silence. Is she alive? Yes. Is she hurt? No. Vincent exhaled once. Sal conscious. Possible rib injury. What about the men? Both alive. Eli looked at the message again. We have a text. Read it. Eli did. The silence that followed felt colder than the snow. When Vincent spoke again, his voice was quiet. Photograph the screen. Send it to Julia and Detective Torres. Eli looked toward the attackers. You want them brought to the restaurant now? The answer surprised him. Vincent continued. I want every statement recorded before Wade can call this a misunderstanding. Eli ended the call. Ruby remained in Sal's arms. Her eyes stayed fixed on the van. Eli approached slowly. We are going home. She looked at him. Is he there? No. How do you know? Because Vincent has people watching him. Ruby tightened her grip on Copper. Wade always finds another way. Eli crouched. Then we close another door. When Ruby returned to the Ivory Crown, Vincent was waiting in the private corridor. He wore no coat. His shirt sleeves were rolled to his forearms. Snow blew through the open stairwell window behind him. Ruby saw him and ran. She struck him in the chest with enough force to make him step back. Vincent lifted her, her arms locked around his neck. They came back. I know. They almost put me in the van. They failed. Her body shook against him. Vincent looked over her shoulder at Sal. Claire was already examining his ribs. Eli gave Vincent a small nod. The phone was real. The evidence was preserved. The men had begun talking. Ruby pulled back enough to see Vincent's face. Do not go anywhere. I am taking you upstairs. After that, I will stay until you sleep. And after I sleep, Vincent looked at her. I will still be in the building when you wake. Ruby searched his expression, then laid her head against his shoulder. He carried her to her room. Margot had turned on every lamp. Claire checked Ruby for injuries. There were none beyond a scraped palm and bruising where the man had grabbed her coat. The deeper damage could not be measured with instruments. Ruby lay beneath the blanket with Copper under her chin. Vincent sat beside her. Her fingers closed around his wrist. Why did they care about my face? Vincent remained still. Ruby had heard enough of the message to understand. He did not lie. Wade believed he could sell you. To who we do not know yet. What would they do? Vincent felt violence rise inside him. He forced it back down. You do not need to carry the details of what he intended. Ruby looked toward the ceiling. He thinks I am a thing. Yes. Do you? No. How do I know? Vincent turned his hand so his palm rested beneath her fingers. Things do not get choices. Ruby looked at him. You do. Her breathing slowed. Sleep took her in broken pieces. Even after her eyes closed, her fingers tightened each time Vincent shifted. He stayed. Near midnight, Eli entered the room quietly. Vincent freed his wrist from Ruby's hand and followed him into the hall. The attackers are talking, Eli said. Wade hired them through Curtis Vale. Names. We have Vale. We have a location. We have payment records from a prepaid account. And Wade, he has left his house. Vincent looked toward Ruby's door. Find him. Eli hesitated. Alive. Vincent's face became unreadable. For now. The investigation moved quickly after that. Detective Elena Torres arrived before dawn with Julia and 2 federal agents. The attackers identified Wade from photographs. One had recorded part of a phone conversation because he did not trust Wade to pay. Wade's voice filled Vincent's office from a small speaker. The girl is 7. Red hair. Keep the fox if she fights. She will follow it. Vincent stood at the window with his back to the room. The recording continued. No bruises above the collar. The buyer wants her clean. Julia stopped the audio. That is enough. Vincent turned. For what? Attempted kidnapping, conspiracy, trafficking charges if we connect the buyer. And Ruby Julia closed the file. Emergency protection becomes much stronger. Wade will not regain access. Not good enough. Detective Torres met his eyes. What would be good enough for you? Vincent looked toward the ceiling, for her to stop checking the door. Torres stood. Then help us put him somewhere the door locks from the outside. Wade had disappeared into the network of cheap motels' back rooms and borrowed cars used by men who believed movement could erase evidence. Eli found him through his debts. A bookmaker in Milwaukee had received a call from Wade asking for money and a route to Canada. Vincent arranged for Wade to hear about a buyer willing to pay for information on Ruby and the men who had failed to take her. The meeting was set inside an abandoned freight warehouse near the river. Detective Torres approved the operation reluctantly. "You do not touch him." Vincent looked at her. That was not a question. "No." Torres stepped closer. "If you want this case to survive, you let him speak." Vincent's gaze remained cold. "I will let him speak." The warehouse smelled of rust oil and old rain. One light hung above the center of the floor. Wade entered through a side door wearing a borrowed coat. His beard had grown unevenly. His eyes moved toward every shadow. He expected Curtis Vale. He found Vincent. Wade stopped. 2 exits closed behind him. "You." Vincent stood beneath the light. Wade backed away. "If I disappear, people will know." "You already disappeared." "I have information. I know. Names, buyers, accounts." Vincent took 1 step forward. Wade lifted both hands. "We can make a deal. You tried to put her in a van. I needed leverage. She is 7. She is not normal." Vincent stopped. Wade saw something in his face and mistook restraint for uncertainty. "You think she is going to love you because you bought her boots. Children like Ruby do not become grateful. They become problems." Vincent crossed the distance and struck him. Wade fell hard. The sound echoed through the warehouse. Vincent stood over him. "You starved her because it made you feel powerful." Wade wiped blood from his mouth. "She lied. You locked her underground. She needed discipline. You burned her. She was impossible." Vincent seized the front of Wade's coat and lifted him halfway from the floor. Wade's shoes scraped against concrete. "You sold the idea of her to men you had never met." Wade smiled through the blood. "And you think you are different?" Vincent's grip tightened. Wade saw the anger and leaned into it. "You own people. You frighten them. You make them obey. At least I admit what I am." Vincent's fist drew back. For 1 second there was no warehouse. He was 17 again. Snow fell over Navy Pier. Grace's fingers slipped from his sleeve. He heard Ruby in the alley. "What if you change your mind?" He heard his own answer. "Then you will see me change it." Vincent released Wade. He stepped back. Wade fell to the floor, coughing. "You do not get to become the thing she remembers about me," Vincent said. Red and blue lights ignited beyond the warehouse windows. Wade looked toward the doors. His face collapsed. "You set me up." Vincent adjusted his cuff. "No. You spoke." Detective Torres entered with federal agents behind her. Wade tried to run. He made it 3 steps. They drove him to the floor and locked steel around his wrists. Vincent watched without satisfaction. Wade twisted his head toward him. "She will never be normal." Vincent looked down. She was never the broken thing in that house. The following morning, Julia arrived at the Ivory Crown carrying a folder. Ruby sat between Vincent and Margot in the private suite. Dana Hart had been questioned through the night. She admitted seeing the bruises. She admitted knowing about the basement. She admitted hearing Wade discuss selling Ruby. She had not called anyone. Under the weight of the evidence and the threat of criminal charges, Dana signed papers relinquishing her guardianship. Julia explained every sentence slowly. Ruby listened with copper in her lap. "Wade cannot take you back to that house," Julia said. Ruby looked at Vincent. Ever Vincent did not answer for her. He waited. Julia nodded. "Ever." Ruby stared at the papers. "What about Aunt Dana? She cannot make decisions for you anymore. Is she going to jail?" "That has not been decided." Ruby's fingers moved over Copper's ear. "She cried when he hurt me." Julia's voice softened. "I know. She said she loved me. I believe she thought she did." Ruby looked at Vincent. "Can someone love you and still leave you there?" Vincent sat beside her. Yes. Her eyes filled. That is not fair. No. Ruby waited for him to make the answer prettier. He did not. After a moment, she placed Copper on the sofa. Then she climbed into Vincent's lap. It was the first time she had done so without fear, invitation, or a nightmare pushing her toward him. Vincent wrapped his arms around her. Ruby rested her head against his chest. I think I believe you now. He looked down at the papers ending Wade's control. Outside morning light spread over Chicago. For the first time, Ruby did not look toward the door. But removing the man who claimed to own her did not answer the question she had asked in the snow. It only gave her the right to choose the answer herself. The right to choose did not make choosing easy. For the first 3 nights after Wade was arrested, Ruby slept beneath the desk in Vincent's office. Her bedroom remained warm. The lamps stayed on. Copper waited beside her pillow. No one had locked the door. Still, when darkness came, Ruby carried her blanket downstairs and folded herself into the narrow space beneath Vincent's desk. Vincent never told her to return to bed. He worked above her in silence, reviewing contracts while the city settled beyond the windows. Each time he shifted his chair, Ruby opened her eyes. I'm here, he would say. She would close them again. On the 4th night, she slept beside the desk instead of beneath it. On the 6th, she slept on the sofa. 2 weeks later, Vincent found her asleep in the center of her own bed, not against the wall, not facing the door. Her arms were spread across the blanket, Copper resting near one shoulder. One foot had escaped from beneath the covers. Vincent stood in the doorway for a long time. He had spent most of his life measuring danger through money territory weapons and the silence of other men. Now he measured safety in inches, the distance between Ruby and the wall, the space between her hand and the door, the number of lights she allowed Margot to turn off before sleep, the small piece of bread she no longer hid beneath her pillow. Healing did not announce itself. It appeared in crumbs left openly on a plate. It appeared in a yellow crayon forgotten on Vincent's office rug overnight. It appeared when Ruby asked Sal for more potatoes and did not apologize. Sal had been waiting for that moment. He placed another spoonful on her plate, then another, then reached for a third. Ruby covered the plate with both hands. That is too much. Sal stopped. All right. She looked at him carefully. You are not mad I am offended by your opinion of potatoes, but I will recover. Ruby smiled. Sal turned toward the stove before anyone could see the water in his eyes. Claire began visiting twice a week. She no longer carried only bandages and medicine. She brought a woman named Dr. Leah Morgan, a child therapist with silver-framed glasses and a quiet voice. Leah did not ask Ruby to describe the basement. She brought cards with faces printed on them. Some faces looked angry. Some looked frightened. Others looked confused, lonely, or proud. Ruby turned the cards over one by one. That one is scared, she said. How can you tell? Leah asked. The eyes. Ruby chose another card. That one is pretending not to be scared. Leah glanced at Vincent, who sat across the room. How can you tell that? The mouth. Vincent looked away. Leah taught Ruby how to name what her body did when fear arrived, the tight chest, the cold fingers, the sound disappearing from the room, the need to become small. She taught Ruby to press both feet against the floor and name 5 things she could see. A lamp, a window, Copper, Vincent's shoes, the door, then 4 things she could feel. The rug, her sweater, the chair, the air against her face. At first, Ruby treated the exercise like another rule she could fail. She repeated everything too quickly and looked at Leah for approval. There is no perfect way to do it, Leah said. Ruby frowned. There is always a right way. Not here. Ruby looked toward Vincent. He leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. Some things are not tests, She absorbed that slowly. During the third session, Leah asked Vincent to leave the room. Ruby's hand closed around copper. Vincent saw it. "I'll be in the hall. How long until you open the door?" "What if I do not?" "Then I stay in the hall." Ruby searched his face. He stepped outside and left the door open 2 inches. For 30 minutes, Vincent sat in a chair beneath the hallway light while Eli stood at the far end, pretending not to watch him. When the door finally opened, Ruby looked out. Vincent remained exactly where he had promised. She did not smile. She only nodded once, as if recording the evidence. The adoption question entered the building quietly. Julia Reyes arrived one afternoon carrying 3 folders and a look that made Margot order coffee before she asked whether Julia wanted any. Ruby was in the kitchen with Sal. Vincent sat across from Julia in his office. "What happens now?" he asked. Julia opened the first folder. "Wade's guardianship has been suspended. Dana has relinquished her rights. Ruby remains in emergency placement while the court determines long-term care. She stays here. That is not your decision." Vincent's eyes hardened. Julia did not retreat. "You helped her. You protected her. None of that automatically makes you the right permanent guardian. What would a full assessment?" Vincent looked at the folders. "My finances. Yes. My home. Yes. My associates. Yes. My criminal record." Julia paused. "The parts that exist." A faint movement touched Vincent's mouth. "You do know how to ask dangerous questions. I work with families." She pushed a document toward him. "You would need to apply as a foster placement first. Then, depending on the court and Ruby's needs, you could petition for adoption." "How long months?" "No." Julia closed the folder. "That is the process. She has spent her entire life waiting for adults to decide what happens to her. And rushing this because you hate waiting would make it about you." The room became still. Vincent looked toward the door. Through the open gap, he could hear Ruby laughing at something Sal had said. Julia's voice softened. "She needs permanence. She also needs a guardian who understands that loving a frightened child does not give him the right to control every outcome." Vincent leaned back. "What do you need?" Julia opened the second folder. "Access." Over the next month, the Ivory Crown changed, not for appearance, not only for inspectors. It changed because Vincent began seeing the building through Ruby's eyes. The 3rd floor had been used for private meetings, confidential deals, and guests whose names never appeared on reservations. Men carrying weapons moved through the corridors at all hours. Security cameras watched every entrance. Locks clicked automatically after midnight. Vincent relocated every business meeting. The 3rd floor became a residence. The private conference room became a study area with shelves low enough for Ruby to reach. The guest bedroom became a playroom, though Ruby did not understand what to do with it at first. Margot placed dolls, puzzles, books, and wooden blocks on the shelves. Ruby stood in the doorway. "Who uses this?" "You do," Margot said. "For what?" "Whatever you like." Ruby stared at the toys. "What am I supposed to make anything? What should it look like?" Margot looked toward Vincent. He had no answer. Ruby had never learned how to play without instructions. Sal solved the problem by entering with a wooden spoon tucked into his belt. He picked up a toy crown and placed it on Copper's head. "Your Majesty," he said, "the kitchen has rebelled." Ruby looked at him. "The kitchen cannot rebel. You have clearly never met my pastry chef." She picked up a wooden block. "What does the king do? Fox King. What does the Fox King do?" Sal lowered his voice. "He demands cookies." Ruby began building a wall around Copper. At first, every wall had no door. Leah noticed but said nothing. A week later, one wall had a small opening. 2 weeks after that, Ruby built a house with 4 doors. Vincent's men adjusted too. No weapons were allowed on the residential floor. Eli installed locked storage near the service stairs and enforced the rule himself. When one lieutenant complained, Eli looked at him until the man removed his pistol without another word. Vincent reduced his involvement in the most dangerous parts of his organization. The decision did not please everyone. Martin Cole returned to the office one rainy evening. He waited until Ruby had gone upstairs. "You are cutting revenue. I am cutting risk. You are handing territory to men who will use it against us." Vincent poured coffee but did not drink it. "I have spent 20 years building walls." Martin looked toward the ceiling. "And now a child walks in and you tear them down." Vincent met his eyes. She did not walk in. Martin said nothing. She stood outside in the snow. Vincent continued. "There is a difference. You cannot leave this life because a judge might ask questions. I am not leaving because of a judge." Then why Vincent looked toward the framed drawing on his desk. Ruby had drawn the Ivory Crown in red and gold. Every window was lit. A small figure stood outside, but the front door was open. "Because I finally know what the walls were for." Martin studied him. "And what happens when your enemies realize she is the reason?" Vincent's voice lowered. "They already know. That does not frighten you more than anything." Martin waited. Vincent turned toward the window. But fear does not get to raise her. The formal home study began on a Tuesday morning. Julia arrived at 9 with a second investigator and a notebook. She inspected Ruby's room. She checked the locks, smoke alarms, windows, medicine cabinets, and security procedures. Ruby followed her everywhere. When Julia opened the closet, Ruby stepped between her and the red boots. Julia noticed. "I am only looking. They are mine." "I know." Ruby kept one hand on the closet door. Vincent stood in the hallway. He did not tell her to move. Julia closed the closet. "Thank you for showing me." Ruby relaxed. They moved through the kitchen. Sal answered questions while preparing soup. "How many hours does Mr. Marlowe work?" Julia asked. "Too many." "Who cares for Ruby when he is unavailable?" "Everyone." Julia stopped writing. "That is not a legal answer." Sal pointed the spoon at her. "It is still the answer." Margot entered with a folder. "I manage her daily schedule. Dr. Bennett oversees medical care. Dr. Morgan handles therapy. Eli is listed for emergency contact. Sal supervises mornings and meals." Sal looked offended. "I do more than meals. You also encourage disorder." "Creativity." Julia looked toward Ruby. "Who helps you when you are scared?" Ruby counted silently. Vincent, Margot, Sal, Eli, Claire, Leah. Anyone else, Ruby thought. Sometimes Jenna at the front desk. Julia wrote something down. "And who makes the rules?" Ruby looked at Vincent. "He does." Vincent felt the answer strike him. Julia looked at Ruby. "Do you get to help make any rules?" Ruby hesitated. "No." That evening, Vincent asked her to join him in the study. A large sheet of paper rested on the table. Ruby climbed into the chair across from him. "What did I do?" "Nothing." She looked at the paper. "Then why am I here?" "We need house rules." Her body tightened. Vincent saw it. Rules for everyone. Ruby looked suspicious. Everyone. Everyone. He wrote the first rule. No one enters a bedroom without knocking. Ruby watched. "Even you? Especially me." He wrote another. "No one takes food from another person's plate." Ruby added, "Unless they ask." Vincent wrote it. She leaned closer. "No yelling near bedrooms." He added that too. "No turning lights off when someone says stop." He wrote slowly. "No touching without asking." Vincent paused. Every time Ruby thought carefully. "If someone is hurt, you can help, but you say what you are doing." He wrote the sentence. Ruby looked at the growing list. What rule do you want Vincent considered it? No leaving the building alone. Ruby's expression closed. He immediately understood. That sounds like a lock. Yes. Vincent crossed the sentence out. Ruby watched the black line cover the words. He tried again. If you want to go outside, tell someone so we know where to find you. Ruby nodded. That is better. The rules were framed and placed in the hall. Sal added one in smaller writing beneath them. No one insults pasta. Margot crossed it out. Ruby laughed when she saw both marks. The foster placement hearing took place 6 weeks later. Ruby did not attend. She remained at the Ivory Crown with Claire and Sal while Vincent went to court. Before he left, she stood beside the service entrance with Copper in her arms. What if they say no, Vincent buttoned his coat? Then I come back here. What if they make me leave before you come back? Julia is here. Claire is here. No one is moving you today. Ruby looked toward the door. You promise? Vincent crouched. I promise I will return before dinner. What time, 6? Ruby glanced at the clock. Not 6:30, 6. The hearing lasted longer than expected. The judge questioned Vincent's finances, business ties, security, staff, and history. A state attorney described him as a man surrounded by allegations. Vincent's lawyer objected. Vincent stopped him. No. The courtroom turned. Vincent looked at the judge. They are allowed to ask. He answered every question he could. When asked whether he had ever used violence, he did not claim innocence. Yes. His lawyer shifted beside him. The judge studied Vincent. Do you believe that history makes you a suitable guardian? No. The answer surprised everyone. Vincent continued. I believe the choices I make now must prove whether I am suitable. The judge granted temporary foster placement with continued supervision. Vincent left the courthouse at 5:20. Traffic stopped along Michigan Avenue. He abandoned the car 3 blocks from the Ivory Crown and walked through freezing rain. At 5:58, he entered the service corridor. Ruby sat on the bottom stair facing the door. She looked at the clock, then at him. You came back. Vincent removed his wet coat. I said 6. It is 5:58. I did not want to be late. Ruby stood. She did not run to him. She simply took his hand and led him upstairs. The months that followed were not gentle. Ruby improved, then retreated. She slept through the night for 1 week, then woke screaming after a delivery truck backfired in the alley. She stopped hiding food, then filled 3 pillowcases with rolls after hearing Sal discuss a delayed shipment. She allowed Margot to close her bedroom door halfway, then panicked when a maintenance worker locked a closet downstairs. Each setback frightened Vincent. Leah taught him not to treat recovery like a staircase. You keep expecting every step to stay beneath her, she said. Shouldn't it? No. Sometimes fear returns because she finally feels safe enough to experience it. That makes no sense. Trauma rarely does. Vincent watched Ruby through the glass wall of the playroom. She was drawing with Margot. What am I supposed to do when she goes backward? Stop calling it backward. He looked at Leah. She survived by doing these things. Hiding food kept her alive. Watching doors kept her alive. Sleeping against walls kept her alive. She is not failing when those habits return. What is she doing? Checking whether the danger is truly gone. Vincent lowered his gaze. And how long does that take? As long as it takes. He almost smiled at the familiar words. Ruby began attending school in early spring. It was a small private school near Lincoln Park with a counselor trained in childhood trauma. On her first morning, she wore a navy uniform and carried a red backpack Margot had chosen. Copper remained hidden inside. Vincent drove her himself. Eli sat in the front passenger seat. Ruby stared through the window as children entered the building. Some ran ahead of their parents. Others complained about homework or dropped gloves on the sidewalk. No one scanned the roof. No one watched the parked cars. Ruby gripped the strap of her backpack. I do not want to go. Vincent turned off the engine. All right. Eli glanced back but said nothing. Ruby looked at Vincent. You said I have to. I said we would come here. What happens if I do not go inside? We sit in the car. For how long? Until you decide. Ruby studied the front doors. 10 minutes passed, then 15. A teacher came outside but remained at a distance. Ruby finally opened the door. Vincent stepped out with her. At the entrance, she caught his sleeve. You will be here later. At 3. What if school ends early? They will call me. What if you cannot answer? Eli answers. What if he cannot Margot? And if she cannot Sal? Ruby looked toward Eli. He nodded. Ruby released Vincent's sleeve. She entered the school. At 3, Vincent stood in the same place. Ruby emerged, carrying a paper crown and a note from her teacher. She walked toward him slowly. How was it, he asked. Loud. Bad loud. She considered. Not always. The second day was easier. The third was not. A boy reached into Ruby's backpack and pulled out copper. He laughed at the missing ear. Ruby struck him. The school called Vincent. He arrived expecting tears. Ruby sat in the counselor's office with both hands folded in her lap. The boy had a red mark on his cheek. His mother stood across the room demanding consequences. Vincent looked at Ruby. Did you hit him? Yes. Why? He took copper. The boy's mother began speaking. Vincent raised one hand. He did not look at her. Did you tell him to return it? Yes. Did he know? Ruby's chin lifted. He said only babies carry toys. Vincent sat beside her. You had the right to be angry. Ruby looked surprised. You did not have the right to hit him. Her face closed. Vincent continued. I know men who hit people whenever they are angry. Are they bad? Sometimes. Are you? The room became quiet. Vincent answered honestly. I have been. Ruby stared at the floor. What should I have done? Call the teacher? Walk away? Ask for help? What if no one helps? Vincent heard the question beneath the question. He lowered his voice. Then you keep asking until someone does. Ruby's eyes lifted. And if every adult fails, Vincent looked at copper in her lap. Then the adults are wrong. You are still not allowed to become Wade. The sentence hurt her. It also reached her. Ruby apologized to the boy. The boy apologized for taking copper. Neither apology fixed everything. Both children returned to class the next day. That evening, Ruby entered Vincent's office. Are you mad at me? No. You did not like what I did? No. That means you are mad. Vincent put down his pen. You can disappoint me without losing me. Ruby stood very still. What I can dislike a choice you made and still love you. She looked at him as though he had spoken in another language. Wade only said he loved me when I was good. Then Wade was using the word wrong. Ruby came closer. What if I do something really bad? We deal with what you did. And then you wake up here the next morning. Ruby's mouth trembled. She climbed into the chair across from him and opened her homework. The adoption petition was filed in May. Julia warned Vincent that approval was not guaranteed. The state had concerns about his past, his associates, and the unusual structure of Ruby's home. Vincent accepted every inspection. He attended parenting classes in a church basement beside couples who recognized him and pretended they did not. He learned about attachment discipline school routines, nutrition, and childhood development. During one class, the instructor asked everyone to describe what happened in their homes when they made mistakes as children. Vincent said nothing. Afterward, he remained in the empty room. The instructor, an older woman named Mrs. Patel, gathered papers near the front. You did not answer. Vincent looked at the small chairs stacked against the wall. My father believed mistakes were disrespect. What did that look like? Silence, usually. Mrs. Patel waited. Vincent's hand moved over the back of a chair. Until it did not. And your mother? She left the room. He heard Ruby describing Dana. She cried. She said she loved me. Mrs. Patel closed her folder. Children often repeat what was done to them, or they build their entire lives around refusing to repeat it. Vincent looked at her. Which is better? Neither if fear is still making the choice. He carried that sentence home. The next evening, Ruby spilled grape juice across a white rug in the third-floor sitting room. The glass shattered. Ruby froze. Vincent entered at the sound. Purple liquid spread across the wool. Ruby dropped to her knees and began wiping it with her sleeves. I can clean it. I can clean it. Vincent stopped in the doorway. For 1 second, he saw himself become another large man standing over a child on a stained floor. He stepped back. Ruby. She scrubbed harder. It will come out. Ruby, look at me. Her breathing quickened. Vincent sat on the floor beyond the spreading stain. The rug is not important. It was clean. It is a rug. I ruined it. You spilled juice. Her hand stopped. Vincent picked up a towel and placed it between them. Can I help? Ruby looked at the broken glass. You are not mad. No. What if it does not come out? Then we have a purple rug. A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. Margot appeared in the hall, saw the mess, and closed her eyes. Sal leaned around her. I support the purple. Margot looked at him. No one asked you. They cleaned the stain together. A faint mark remained. Vincent refused to replace the rug. Months later, Ruby would sometimes sit beside that mark while reading. It became proof that accidents could remain visible without becoming punishments. The final home study occurred in late summer. Julia interviewed Ruby alone in the playroom. Vincent waited outside. He sat beneath the same hallway light where he had waited during Ruby's first private therapy session. Eli stood at the far end. You are wearing a path into the carpet, Eli said. Vincent stopped pacing. I do not pace. Eli looked at the carpet. Vincent sat. Inside, Julia placed colored pencils on the table. Can you draw the place where you live? Ruby began with the restaurant. She drew the black front doors, but they were open. She drew the kitchen with Sal beside a stove. Margot stood near a stack of books. Eli guarded a door while wearing a bright green hat he had never owned. Claire held a medical bag. Leah sat on the rug. Vincent stood in the middle of the page. Ruby drew herself beside him. Not behind him. Not beneath his coat. Beside him. At the bottom, she printed one word in uneven letters. Home. Julia looked at the drawing. What makes it home? Ruby kept coloring. My things stay where I leave them. What else? There is breakfast tomorrow. Julia waited. Ruby added another window. When people say they will come back, they come back. Do you want to stay here permanently? Ruby's pencil stopped. What does permanently mean? It means this would remain your home as you grow up. Ruby looked toward the door. Would Vincent stay? That is what he is asking the judge to allow. Ruby frowned. He needs permission to stay with me in a way. That is silly. Julia smiled. Courts can be. Ruby lowered her voice. What if they say he is bad? What do you think Ruby considered the question seriously? He scares bad people. Does he scare you? Sometimes. Julia's expression sharpened. Ruby continued. He is very big, and sometimes his face gets quiet. What happens then? He notices. He moves away. Has he ever hurt you? No. Has he ever threatened you? No. Has he ever made you keep a secret from me? Ruby shook her head. He said I should tell you if he does something wrong. Julia wrote that down. What does he do when you are angry with him? Ruby looked surprised by the question. I can be angry with him. Julia smiled again. Yes, the adoption hearing was scheduled for October. 3 nights before court, Ruby entered Vincent's office wearing pajamas and carrying copper. Rain tapped against the windows. Vincent was reviewing a statement with his lawyer. He sent the lawyer home. Ruby climbed into the chair across from him. What happens if the judge says no? Vincent put the papers aside. I do not know. She looked hurt. You usually know. Not this time. Could she make me leave? It is possible. Ruby slid from the chair. Vincent came around the desk and sat on the rug. She remained standing. You promised I could stay. I promised I would not give you back to Wade. That is not the same. No. Ruby's eyes filled. Then you lied. Vincent accepted the blow. I promised more than I had the power to guarantee. You said as long as I needed. I meant it. But a judge can say no. Yes. Ruby turned away. Vincent did not reach for her. What can you promise? She asked. He thought carefully. I can promise I will be in court. Ruby looked back. I can promise I will answer every question honestly. I can promise that if the judge says no, I will not disappear. I will come back the next morning and keep fighting in every legal way I can. How long? As long as it takes. Ruby wiped her face with her sleeve. What if I get sent somewhere else? I will visit if they allow it. And if they do not, I will write. What if they do not give me the letters? I will keep writing. Her voice broke. What if I forget you? Vincent's face changed. He stood slowly and lowered himself in front of her. Then I will remember for both of us. Ruby stared at him. Do you promise? Yes. She stepped into his arms. Leave the light on tonight. I will. The courthouse stood beneath a pale October sky. Ruby wore a dark blue dress and the red boots she had nearly outgrown. Margot had offered new shoes. Ruby refused. These came first. Copper wore a blue ribbon around his neck. Sal had tied it badly. Margot had retied it when he was not looking. The courtroom was smaller than Ruby expected. Vincent sat beside her at one table. Julia sat nearby. Claire Leah. Margot, Sal, and Eli filled the first row behind them. Ruby looked back. They all came. Vincent followed her gaze. They said they would. The hearing lasted nearly 3 hours. Claire testified first. She described Ruby's condition on the night she arrived, the injuries, malnutrition, frost damage, and the way Ruby asked permission before accepting food. Claire also described her recovery. She has gained weight. Her injuries have healed. She sleeps more consistently. She continues to experience trauma responses, but she now seeks help rather than hiding every time she is afraid. The judge looked toward Ruby. Does she understand what is happening today? Yes, Claire said, as much as any child can. Leah spoke about attachment. Ruby does not trust Vincent because he rescued her once. She trusts him because his behavior has remained consistent after the emergency ended. The state attorney asked whether Ruby's bond with Vincent could be based on dependence created during crisis. Leah nodded. That was a concern at first, and now she disagrees with him. A few people smiled. Leah continued. She becomes angry. She tests limits. She tells him no. Those are healthy developments for a child who once believed disagreement led to violence. Margot testified about daily life. She described homework, medical appointments, bedtime routines, school meetings, and the house rules Ruby helped write. Sal testified after her. He wore a suit that looked painful. The state attorney asked what role he played in Ruby's care. Sal cleared his throat. Breakfast. Only breakfast lunch when necessary. Dinner when Margot allows me near the schedule. Margot closed her eyes. Sal looked toward Ruby. And making sure she knows there is always more. His voice roughened. The first morning she hid toast in a coat pocket. Last week she complained because I put too much sauce on her pasta. The judge smiled. Sal looked down. That is progress. Eli took the stand. He answered questions about security weapons and Vincent's organization. The state attorney asked whether Eli considered the Ivory Crown dangerous. Any place can be dangerous. That was not the question. Eli looked toward Ruby. It is the safest place I know. Why? Because everyone inside knows what matters. And what matters? Eli's eyes settled on Ruby. She sleeps because she knows someone is watching the door. Vincent testified last. The state attorney approached with a thick folder. You have been named in multiple investigations. Yes, you maintain relationships with individuals convicted of violent crimes. Yes, you have used violence yourself. Yes? His lawyer shifted. Vincent kept his eyes on the attorney. Do you believe that history qualifies you to raise a child? No. The courtroom went still. The attorney looked surprised. Vincent continued. My history does not qualify me. It is something the court should consider carefully. Then why should this adoption be granted? Vincent looked toward Ruby. She sat very still, copper beneath one hand. Because I changed the structure of my life before anyone ordered me to. Because she has doctors, teachers, a therapist, and people who will challenge me when I am wrong. Because I do not believe loving her makes me beyond examination. The attorney studied him. Do you expect the court to believe you have become a different man in less than a year? No. What do you expect? Vincent's voice remained quiet. I expect to spend the rest of my life proving what kind of man I choose to be around her. The attorney returned to the table. Judge Naomi Keller looked down at Ruby. Would you speak with me? Ruby's hand closed around Copper. Vincent leaned closer. You do not have to say anything you do not want to say. Ruby looked at him, then she stood. The judge asked her to come forward. A small chair waited near the bench. Ruby climbed onto it. Her red boots did not touch the floor. Judge Keller softened her voice. Do you understand why we are here to see if I can stay? Yes. The judge glanced at the papers. Where do you want to live with Vincent? Why? Ruby looked toward him. The entire courtroom waited. Because he stays. The judge leaned forward. What does that mean? Ruby held Copper against her chest. When he says he will be there in the morning, he is there. When he says food is not a prize, there is still breakfast even if I was bad the day before. Vincent lowered his eyes. Ruby continued. He does not turn lights off when I say stop. He knocks. He lets me close doors. He lets me open them. The judge nodded. Are you ever afraid of him? Ruby thought. Yes. A movement passed through the courtroom. Vincent did not look away. Judge Keller remained calm. When are you afraid? When he gets very quiet. What happens then? He sees my face. Then he sits down so he is not big. The judge glanced at Vincent. Ruby's voice became smaller. He does not make me say I am not scared. Do you believe he loves you? Ruby looked down at Copper. Yes. How do you know he gets things wrong? The judge raised her eyebrows. Ruby looked toward Vincent again. He promised I could stay before he knew if the judge would let me. Then he told me he should not have promised something that was not his choice. Vincent felt every eye in the room. Ruby continued. Wade never said he was wrong? The judge sat back. Is there anything else you want me to know? Ruby's lower lip trembled. At his house I do not have to disappear. No one moved. The judge looked down at her papers for several seconds. When she spoke, her voice was formal. The adoption petition was granted. Ruby Hart would become Ruby Marlowe. Vincent heard the words. For a moment he could not understand them. Ruby turned toward him. Did she say yes? He stood. Yes. Ruby ran. Vincent caught her against his chest. The courtroom blurred around them. She wrapped both arms around his neck. So I am yours. Vincent pulled back enough to see her face. No. Ruby froze. He touched one hand lightly to her hair. You are your own person. Her brow tightened. Vincent's voice broke at the edges. But I am your father if you still want me. Ruby stared at him. Then her face folded. Okay, Dad. The word entered him more deeply than any blade ever had. Vincent closed his eyes. He held her while Sal cried openly behind them and denied it when Margot offered him a handkerchief. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited beyond the steps. Eli and Julia cleared a path. Ruby held Vincent's hand as they walked into the cold. Snow had not yet begun, but the air carried it. At the bottom of the steps, Ruby stopped. What is wrong? Vincent asked. She looked at the red boots. They are too small. Vincent looked down. Her toes pressed against the worn leather. We can buy new ones. Ruby's expression turned uncertain. Can I keep these? Yes. Even if they do not fit, yes. She nodded. Good. They returned to the Ivory Crown before sunset. The staff had filled the kitchen with flowers cake and enough food to serve 3 weddings. Sal had written Ruby Marlowe across the cake in uneven blue frosting. Margot stood beside it with her arms crossed. He refused assistance. It has character, Sal said. It is leaning. So is the tower in Pisa. We are not in Pisa. Ruby entered the kitchen. Everyone grew quiet. She looked at the cake, then at Sal. You spelled Marlowe wrong. Sal turned toward the cake. Margot covered her mouth. Eli looked at the ceiling. Sal stared at the missing letter. That is artistic freedom. Ruby laughed so hard she had to hold the counter. Vincent watched her. Not the frightened breath of laughter that escaped before she could stop it. This laugh filled the room. It expected to be heard. Later, after the plates were cleared and the staff had gone home, Vincent carried Ruby upstairs. She had fallen asleep in the office with copper beneath her chin and a blue frosting mark near one cheek. Her new adoption papers rested inside a locked drawer. Her old red boots stood beside the front door. Vincent lowered her into bed. Ruby opened her eyes. Dad. He stopped. I'm here. She looked toward the hallway. Is the light on? Yes. Can the door stay open? Yes. Vincent pulled the blanket over her. Ruby's fingers found copper. Do you remember when I asked if you knew anyone who needed a daughter? Yes. Did you know Vincent sat on the edge of the bed? No. Ruby frowned sleepily. Then why did you stop? He looked at the child who had crossed Chicago barefoot because every adult before him had taught her that love had to be earned. He thought of Grace. He thought of the winter festival and the empty years afterward. He thought of every wall he had built, every man he had frightened, and every room he had filled with power because power felt safer than grief. Then he looked at Ruby. Because I heard you. She considered the answer. But did you need a daughter? Vincent touched one finger to Copper's remaining ear. I just did not know it yet. Ruby smiled. Her eyes closed. Vincent remained until her breathing became deep and even. When he stepped into the hall, Margot stood near the stairs. She asleep? Yes. Margot looked through the open bedroom door. You should sleep too. Vincent glanced at the hallway light. I will. Margot walked downstairs. Vincent remained another minute. Then he turned off one lamp. Ruby did not move. He turned off another. Her breathing remained steady. He left the hallway light burning. Downstairs, the black doors of the Ivory Crown were locked for the night. Inside the entrance, 2 pairs of shoes stood beside each other. Vincent's black shoes polished and still. Ruby's red boots scratched worn and much too small. They remained there not because she might need to run. They remained because they were hers, and because she knew they would still be there in the morning.